For generations, American fishermen have braved the waters, hauling in catches that fuel local economies and feed millions. But lately, things have taken a turn for the worse. Regulatory freezes, mismanagement, and a complete lack of accountability are throwing the industry into chaos. Boats sit idle, businesses struggle, and hardworking families watch their livelihoods slip away, all because of reckless government decisions. The Trump administration's failure to act is pushing the seafood industry to the edge, and yet, there's little acknowledgement of the damage being done. Does Trump even realize the storm he's created? Or are the fishermen the backbone of coastal towns just collateral damage in another political game? For decades, the U.S. fishing industry followed a strict, science-backed system to keep the waters full and businesses thriving. It was all about balance, letting fishermen make a living while protecting fish populations from being wiped out. At the heart of it all was the Magnuson-Stevens Act, a game-changing law passed in 1976. It set the rules, making sure fish stocks stayed healthy and future generations could keep fishing. NOAA and regional fisheries councils kept a close watch, studying the waters, setting catch limits, and making sure no species was pushed to the brink. It wasn't perfect, but it worked until everything started unraveling. Thanks to smart management and science-backed rules, some of America's most valuable fish stocks made an incredible comeback after years of overfishing. Take Atlantic bluefin tuna, once in serious trouble in the 1990s. Their numbers started bouncing back because of tight quotas and crackdowns on illegal fishing. Now the U.S. tuna industry pulls in a massive $3.2 billion a year, making it a powerhouse in seafood exports. Then there's Atlantic scallops, a gold mine for fishermen. With $570 million in yearly revenue, this fishery thrives thanks to smart rules like protected areas and size limits that keep scallop populations strong without wiping them out. And haddock, a staple for New England and mid-Atlantic fisheries, was once on the edge. But careful monitoring and strict production limits turned things around, bringing in $41 million a year while keeping the fishery sustainable. It was a system that worked until reckless policies started putting it all at risk. Before Trump took office, the U.S. fishing industry had a system that worked, one built on smart, science-driven decisions to keep the waters healthy and the economy thriving. Every year, NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, ran over 200 scientific studies looking at fish populations and predicting what could be caught without draining resources for the future. This data helped make key decisions about fishing quotas and when the fishing season should open, ensuring sustainability. Fishing quotas were based on real science. Take bluefin tuna. For example, NOAA set the quota at 1,275 tons in 2016, matching the tuna's ability to reproduce so the population could recover. This wasn't just about making money. It was about protecting resources for future generations. To protect the environment, NOAA teamed up with the U.S. Coast Guard to stop illegal fishing, keeping fishermen honest and ensuring fair play. They cracked down on illegal nets, off-limits areas, and overfishing. This kept the industry healthy and ensured law-abiding fishermen had a fair shot at success. The government also backed fishermen, offering $280 million a year in support programs to help them buy eco-friendly equipment or recover from natural disasters. The system was working good for business, great for the environment. But when Trump took office, everything changed. In no time, the carefully built management system was sabotaged, throwing the entire industry into chaos. It didn't take long for the stability that had been years in the making to unravel. The day Trump took office, everything came to a screeching halt. His freeze on new regulations threw the entire fishing industry into chaos. Fisheries meetings were canceled indefinitely, leaving fishermen in the dark. No quotas, no schedules, no idea when or how they could fish. Experts warned that this kind of delay wasn't just an inconvenience, it could collapse the entire seafood supply chain. Without clear rules, businesses couldn't plan, markets stalled, and confusion spread like wildfire. Ben Martins, head of the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, didn't sugarcoat it. "It's a disaster," he said. "People are confused. There are no guidelines, no regulations, nothing. This is not what a responsible government should do. Fishermen were left stranded, with no answers and no way forward. Of all the species hurt by Trump's reckless policies, Atlantic bluefin tuna took one of the hardest hits. This fish is big money, especially in Japan and Europe, raking in $3.2 billion a year in exports. But that kind of value depends on careful management, something the Trump administration threw out the window. Under the old system, NOAA would shut down tuna fishing the moment the catch hit the safe limit. But with Trump's regulatory freeze, officials were blocked from making that call. The result: fishermen blew past the quota by 125%, catching way more than the limit. And here's where it gets worse. When summer rolls around and the tuna migrate to New York and New England, fishermen there will see their quotas slashed to make up for the earlier overfishing. That means hundreds of fishermen, the ones who actually play by the rules, will lose a massive chunk of their income right in the middle of peak season. New York fisherman John McMurray summed it up: "I'm not sure how much we'll even be allowed to catch when the season comes. We might be punished for mistakes made by the authorities." The real kicker: the ones who fished illegally got away with it. The ones who waited for the right season, the honest fishermen, are the ones paying the price. Instead of protecting the industry, Trump turned it into a free-for-all, where the fastest rule breakers win and the hardworking, law-abiding fishermen get left behind. Not only freezing regulations, the Trump administration also implemented them: a brutal layoff at NOAA, fired 163 employees, including fish biologists, fisheries management specialists, and administrative support staff. These are the people responsible for monitoring fish stocks, advising governments, and ensuring sustainable exploitation. An anonymous NOAA employee said, "Without data, without monitoring, we are running the fishery like a risky gamble." As a result of this decision, NOAA was almost paralyzed. Fish stock reports have not been updated, marine monitoring has been severely curtailed, and scientific research into climate change, a key factor influencing the migration of many fish species, has also been suspended. The practical consequence is that fishermen do not know how much fish stock is left, leading to indiscriminate exploitation or inactivity in fishing plans. The government lost its ability to control an industry worth tens of billions of dollars, pushing it into disorganization. Coastal communities, which depend on fisheries, face job losses and economic decline. In Rhode Island, the fishing industry took a $25 million hit in just the first 6 months of the year, all because of delays in regulations. Fishermen were left in the dark, with no clue about quotas, fishing limits, or even when the fishing grounds would open. With no rules to follow, many boats had to stay anchored for weeks, sometimes months, just waiting for permission to head out. Meanwhile, in New England, things were even worse. Fishermen were worried about being punished for overfishing in southern waters, all because the Trump administration stalled on issuing new regulations. This delay created a huge imbalance across fishing regions, leaving some areas overfished while others were stuck in limbo. The New England scallop industry, worth about $400 million a year, took a serious blow. The fishing season was delayed from April to June, causing market prices to tank and leaving many fishermen without their main source of income during the peak season. John Ainsworth, a frustrated fisherman from Rhode Island, summed it up perfectly: "We are being strangled by wrong decisions from Washington. We want to work, but the government gets in the way." The chaos wasn't just hurting fishermen, it was shutting down entire local economies. From fuel suppliers to boat maintenance shops to seafood processing plants, every part of the fishing industry was feeling the strain. When the boats can't go out, everything comes to a standstill. And the communities that rely on fishing, they're left in the dust. In Alaska, one of the biggest fishing centers in the US, things are spiraling out of control. Time is running out for fishermen. If the government keeps delaying the season, they'll lose their only chance to make a living. The fishing season is short, and every day that's wasted means less income and fewer jobs for thousands of workers. Linda Benkin, head of the Alaska Longline Fishermen's Association, put it bluntly: no fishing means no work. We only have a short period of the year to fish. If we're delayed, it means the fishing season will be shortened, and that's a disaster for all of us. Alaska's coastal communities are feeling the crunch. They rely on the sea to survive, and with fishing on hold, their futures are up in the air. Families are falling deeper into debt, unable to pay for boats or equipment. The seafood plants are struggling too, with no fish coming in. Seasonal workers are losing their jobs left and right. Each day of delay is pushing Alaska's fishing economy closer to disaster, and the people who depend on it are being left to suffer. The fishing crisis isn't just hurting fishermen, it's sending shockwaves through the entire seafood industry. With less fish being caught, prices are skyrocketing, leaving restaurants, processing plants, and everyday consumers to pick up the bill. Take cod, one of the most popular fish in the U.S. Twice's price has jumped 22% in just a few months. Seafood restaurants in Boston, New York, and San Francisco are scrambling to keep up, either raising menu prices or shrinking portion sizes to survive. Meanwhile, small seafood processing plants are on the brink of shutting down, struggling to stay afloat without a steady supply of fish. Christopher Willey, a fisherman and restaurant owner in Rhode Island, warns that this is just the beginning. If we don't control fish stocks, prices will keep rising, and in the end, consumers will suffer the most. If the industry collapses, it won't just be fishermen who lose, it'll be everyone who relies on seafood, from businesses to families trying to put dinner on the table. Trump's freeze on regulations didn't help anyone. It threw the fishing industry into chaos, gutting the marine economy and leaving fishermen struggling to survive. In the name of cutting red tape, he tore apart a system that had protected fish stocks and kept the industry running smoothly for decades. The damage was immediate. Fishermen lost their jobs, the industry bled hundreds of millions, and fish populations plunged toward dangerous levels. If the government doesn't step in fast to fix the mess, America could lose one of its most vital industries, and the communities that depend on it could be left with nothing. Trump promised to make America great again, but his actions have only weakened the country. The fishing industry is just one of many that have been wrecked by his reckless decisions. Instead of protecting hardworking Americans, he left them struggling, watching their livelihoods slip away. His incompetence didn't just hurt fishermen, it shook entire communities, proving that his promises were nothing more than empty words.